tears and start on the whole, you know.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. We are here at BroadwayCon 2020. I'm Chris Dane.
I'm Lyndsay Crescenti.
And we are joined by one of the most exciting guests we've ever had. Broadway.com's 2019 Star of the Year, leading actor in Broadway's record-breaking musical Beetlejuice, the man who plays the ghost with the most 8 times a week, Tony-nominated performer Alex Brightman. Alex, thank you for joining us tonight.
That's an intro where I could you should be like recently found dead in a ditch. Like it sounds like you just told, it sounds like a eulogy. Thank you very much.
Well, I want to give you all your accolades because you honestly deserve them.
I appreciate that.
So I just want to ask the first question. You've had a pretty amazing Broadway career so far. In 2008, you played Buck in Wicked, which is a pretty iconic role now at this point. We're in, the 16th year of Wicked?
Oh, my God. Is that what it is?
I think 15 was last year. I think this is 16th year. So
I'd love to have written that.
And then you also played Dewey Finn in School of Rock, which
Yes.
you originated the role. And now you're playing Beetlejuice, another original role for an original musical. So what is the process you approach for approaching a role like Buck, which is iconic and sort of had a history before you, and then originating a role like Dewey Finn, which is original to Broadway but not original to the world per se?
Sure. Bach was the first time I did something that like there had been like multiple performers who had put their mark on it. So it was a strange thing. I had never just jumped into a show that felt like a machine that was moving and you had to just kind of fit. So that was its own little challenge to do the thing that is just expected of the last guy. So that was also a learning lesson because I love improv and to sort of screw around. And so anytime I would try to do that for the 2 years that I was at Wicked, they would just kind of be like, you can't do that. So there was, literally though, it became, which is why it's so successful. It has like it just works like a machine. So if you were trying to step outside of that machine, you're going to get a limb cut off. And so that was its own little adventure for me as far as like keeping it straight, like keeping it like, keeping a lid on it. And after 2 years, I kind of got a little itchy. So I guess more like I learned through doing that I am much more of a creative generating sort of performer. Like I'd like to generate content and ideas and stuff, which brings me to the stuff that I got to originate on Broadway through source material, which is also its own challenge because you have Jack Black and you have Michael Keaton, both giving performances that it's whenever you say their names, that's what the roles you think of. Right. So anytime I go into any type of like role, no matter what it is, source material or not, I always kind of go inward first. It's like, okay, what is this? Like, don't look at it like, don't watch the movie and try to copy. Don't think about the source material. Just what is this? Who is this person? Sure. Dewey. He's lazy. He's lethargic. He figured that if he just sits in his room all day, life will go by and then it'll be over. That's something that's not really necessarily in the film. And so just something you just think and live and improvise in your own head. And you go from there. And then, then you find ways to make an homage. And with Beetlejuice, it was totally ground up, sandbox type. All right, here are the facets of this world. How do I live inside of it? And I went more human than anything else. Like, how would I feel if I've never been seen before, which is lonely? Mm-hmm. How would I feel if I have no boundaries? Because he doesn't have them. He has complete boundary issues. Right. And, he's a little filthy. But that's fine, because so am I.
A little?
Yeah. And so I'm drawing a little bit from inspiration from my own life for there, because I have a dark sense of humor. But that's it. I mean, it always starts with, like, sandboxing, playing, and seeing all the things that don't work so that when you actually clear it all away, you have this little, like, tight, neat little sandcastle of the stuff that actually works.
Awesome.
How much freedom do you have to improvise every night and break the fourth wall versus found in rehearsal and found on stage every evening?
So the biggest compliment I get is, how much of that did you make up that night? How much of this was improvised? And the truth of it is, it's 99.9% written. Even the stuff that feels off the cuff, at one point probably was. In the room, we worked on it. I had the luxury of working on this show for 4 years before we really put it up. This is a year, like 4.5 years, I think. And we've been doing it for nearly a year on Broadway. But in the room, we got a chance to play, and we got a chance to screw around and really, truly have freedom to come up with our own stuff. So some of the stuff that feels improvisatory probably was at one point that just it hit, and they were like, keep it in. So then it becomes an extra challenge, which is like pretending and actually believing that, I'm just coming up with this now. Mm-hmm. But because I've done improv for so long in my life, since high school, it's just sort of a tool that I have to just make it feel like its own thing, and there are little tips and tricks about it, but they're boring. But yeah, no, I mean, sometimes I have some freedom to do it. I just never really truly have had to use it in any sort of real bona fide fashion yet. Usually it has to do with the audience. If they act up, I have the permission to sort of, engage.
Yeah, so now you guys have done numerous live television performances where you have to alter songs. So how I assume that's probably done beforehand, and they're not just asking you, "Hey, Alex, think on the fly to make sure this is family friendly." Right. Go have at it. So, what is the process like for when you guys do a performance like the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, where you have to sit down and go, "Okay, national television can't hear this."
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny the things that you can and can't say, because it's not just curse words. It's like you can't be certain religious thing, so you have to really toe this line. But the cool thing is that they've included me in every one of those conversations. When they wrote Eddie Perfect, who wrote the music and lyrics, includes me, and with Alex Timbers, in the idea process of coming up with these versions of the opening number, which is smart because I'm the one that has to deliver it.
Right.
So if it doesn't come out in a way that it's comfortable for me, then that's their fault because I should have been involved. And they also know me as a writer, so they know that will stay up and muddle over this and figure out funny things to do. The sort of Adam Driver joke in the Tony Awards was mine and Eddie's combined, and things like that are I'm very prideful when it comes to like the things that hit not only for a live audience but for a national audience. Is really fun and exciting. But it would only have worked if we were truly collaborating together. But no, it is, first of all, not on the fly.
Yeah, I know.
That would be unbelievable. I deserve so many awards if that was true. Then I really do deserve some awards. No, but it's truly like everything else in the Beetlejuice process. It was like a testament to true capital C collaboration.
That's awesome.
On your writing, can you give me an exact percentage of how much of your comedy writing material is inspired by the things that happen in your life?
Exact percentage. Okay. 89% of the stuff that I write is either generated from something that has happened in my life or something that I can pull from an event in my life or from a conversation I've had. Just as an example, I'm writing a play right now that is, the premise is a school board gets together to decide whether or not they want to put a speed bump and a stop sign on the perimeter of their school because a third grader with Down syndrome was hit and killed by a car on the outside of school a month ago. And the reason I wanted to write that play is because my dad founded the Disability Solutions Group at Apple Computer, so I've been around that world my whole life. And so I've always wanted to write a play about developmental disabilities and sort of people's views on them, because there's wide-ranging views on it. I just never knew how to do it. And then I also wanted to write 12 Angry Men. And I also wanted to write God of Carnage. So I just wanted to write some sort of morality play where you get to really see who people are by just a very simple issue. Should we put a stop sign up? And you think that's it, and then it's not. So things like that, like little morsels get drawn out and then extrapolated then. That's an example.
That's awesome. So you touched on this a little bit. You mentioned high school. You did improv.
Yeah.
I assume you also were probably part of your theater production at schools. But how did you get started? What inspired you to, when you were sitting there one day, just be like, I have to be on a stage. I have to be performing. And I have to be a writer. I want to be that.
So that all happened in stages. I saw a Broadway show when I was 8 years old. I saw Cats at the Winter Garden, which is like this cool full circle moment, because it was by Andrew Lloyd Webber, and then 21 years later, there I am, like in an Andrew Lloyd Webber musical at the Winter Garden,
yeah,
right?
Wow.
Which is crazy. But I remember seeing Cats, and whether or not I enjoyed the experience, I was 8, so it's hard to even pull that memory.
Yeah.
But what I like to say is that there's a time in your life where you don't know what anything is. This is the first time you try an apple or pudding or whatever, and you just go, oh, that's pudding, and you log that in your head. Same thing with this. I went, this is theater, okay? I like this a lot. So I got back home from New York City in California, and I just begged my parents to put me into whatever that was. And we found a community theater, and it went from there. Improv happened in high school. I loved watching Whose Line Is It Anyway? Yeah. There was a place in California called Comedy Sports, which exists across the nation, which is a live improv show. So that happened in high school, and I did all 4 years of high school and beyond now. And then the writing happened by virtue of me breaking my ankle in Big Fish. Oh, wow. I always liked to write, things, but I never had anything concrete, and they were just ideas, and I always give up. And I had like 3 months where I couldn't move, so I bought a desk and a chair and opened up a computer and just started writing stuff down. And they were little scenes, and it sort of blossomed into what is now the other half of my career. That's awesome. And I make a living doing it, which is great.
I loved Big Fish, and that show totally needed to run longer than it did. But
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
But speaking of the Winter Garden, because now you've done 2 shows there, what's your favorite memory of being in the Winter Garden from the past 2 shows you've done?
That is great question. Let me think. 'Cause there's legitimately like hundreds and thousands of little tiny memories, and I want to find a good one that maybe I haven't even said before. I can tell you, this is great. So I get to the theater super early. I have to get there early anyway to get makeup for Beetlejuice, but I tend to get to places very early just to like be there. I don't believe in like arriving and starting. Right. I like to sort of be in a place before we begin. And that goes for rehearsals and lunch dates, whatever. And so I remember I just was like having that moment where I was like, I've been in the Winter Garden for so long. I don't remember like what it feels like to sit in the mezzanine, which is where I sat the first time when I saw Cats. And so I went sort of vaguely where I remember sitting and just sat there and sort of like just had to like try to remember. And it choked me up, not because it's, full circle, but it choked me up just to be like, this is, it's crazy. It's a crazy notion to think that an 8-year-old kid sits in the balcony of something and then later is sitting there 20 some odd years later, starring in a show, inspiring others like me to do hopefully this and fundamentally change their lives. It just got a little too real. And that was recently. I was one of those things where you go, wow, not only is there just one person playing this role in the world, because there's 50 Elphabas now, right? And there's 50, whatever. But there's just one Beetlejuice right now on Broadway, and that's me. And that is also one of those worldly moments that you just can only have when you're sitting alone in a dark theater. So that's it. It's those little moments of myself and thought that I truly cherish.
That's really just a deep experience. Just sharing that.
Why are you guys crying? Stop crying.
I try to
Honestly,
contain it. Now we've been talking about a lot of great opportunities you've had and a lot of great successes you've had. I do want to shift away to something that's a little probably more anger-inducing for you, and I know because you've gone off on Twitter. Bootleg recordings.
Oh, let's talk about it.
I absolutely hate them. I could sit here for an hour alone just ranting about them.
Let's do it.
But I want to hear you do it.
Sure.
But I want to hear your thoughts on bootleg recordings beyond just being illegal.
Yeah. The fact that it is illegal should be the end of the conversation, which is crazy to me. But this is why. It's because live theater is live, right? The minute it's not live anymore, it's not live theater. And at any point, the whole point of seeing a show is you're seeing something in the moment that will never exist again. We're doing the same show over and over and over again, but it cannot be the same. It's not. It's live, and why try to ruin that by capturing it on film? It ruins the memory. It taints the memory completely. If you're watching something back and you get to go, oh, that wasn't as good as I remember it. Why would you allow yourself to go then nitpick on a great memory? That's a big one for me, is that like people get the chance to like go back and watch the tape and be like, oh, they did misstep here, or they did that. It's like, who cares? That's the reason why it's so fun. And I also think that when you're bootlegging something in a theater, you're making an experience great for maybe a couple people after the fact, but you're truly ruining the experience for people that are actually there live. I don't think people know that, because people, when they bootleg, they're not thinking globally. They're thinking very personally and egotistically. I think it's a very selfish thing to do. And I've been slammed on this online about like, people can't afford to see theater. That isn't the point I'm making. It's not the point. It is the point of like, if you people now think that they're entitled to everything because we have the internet, and fine, but you're wrong. You're not. No one's entitled to everything. That is the most narcissistic, egotistical thing I've ever heard. Things are earned. Things are warranted. You can gift yourself something and build towards something. And that's what I think is great about growing up, is that you set goals for yourself. I want to see this Broadway show. And then when you do, you filled that void and like endorphins flood your brain rather than going, click, it's okay. Mm-hmm. It's like, how you want to live. That's how you want to live your life. Like, that's okay. It's fine. It's like, go see a live show, enjoy it for 2 hours, forget that we live in hell, and just, don't ruin it for others. I could keep talking about it forever and how distracting it is to the performers, but truly, it is just a matter of narcissism. And I think we just need to cut that out because we don't have time. Life's too short.
I totally agree. So just our final question, and thank you again for being here and doing this with us. One, Beetlejuice is closing. What are your feelings on that? And then additionally, very quickly, what are words of wisdom you have for anyone who's sitting in the audience like you were when you were 8, who sees this and goes, I want to feel what that's like.
Mm-hmm. First of all, we're not closing. We're being evicted from our theater.
Yes, that's true.
And I mean that. I mean, the thing is, like, is that if it is over on June 6th, it doesn't mean that Beetlejuice is over. Like, they are actively looking for another theater, truly. Whether it's that or a tour or the West End, it is certainly not the end of Beetlejuice. That's like something we want to make very clear. And my advice is always the same, which is like, if you love it, do it. If you hate it, stop doing it. It's just for everything, but especially theater, because you can be way unhappier doing a better paying job.
That's so true.
You know what I mean? If you want to be unhappy, go do something that pays you more, because this is something that pays you less, and you have to like really love it and gain soul points for doing it. It's not about money, or fame. So do it because you love it. Everything, but especially theater. And if you hate it, please get out. I don't care what your parents say. Don't listen to your parents. And don't do drugs.
Alex, again, thank you so much. We loved having you here. And
Thanks,
thank
guys.
you again for indulging us in all of our questions.
Of course.